To the one, the only Hawg Talk podcast. We are part of Believe and Buzz Radio networks, where you can hear us on all podcast platforms, as well as Buzz to 106.7 in Central Arkansas. So please like, rate, and review our podcast. I'm your host, Porter Hayes of Sports and Culture Arkansas, and all live shows are presented by Arkansas Brewing Company in Ozark, Arkansas, as well as Bet Online, which remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the Super Bowl to esports. BetOnline features live betting, free contests for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. So head on over to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BLEAV to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. And we will go now to our buddy, the guru, Kevin Bohannon, to preview the Arkansas baseball season. I know that right now a lot of people are probably watching the Super Bowl right now, which is 19. It is 24-21 Eagles. So, Kevin, thank you for joining, man.
You bet. Good to be back. I'm excited. We're 5 days away from first pitch, and went into last fall with a lot of questions. Those questions got answered, and now this is a top 10 team. How they finished the year, you don't know. But going into it, I like the way they look. There's a lot of good young talent on this team. And when you get good young talent, though, it's really good because you mesh that with transfer talent now. And that's, the rental players like Michael Turner and those guys. But at some point, that's what Coach Van Horn, he's been surprised by all the chemistry of this team. So I'm excited to talk about them a little bit more tonight.
Yeah, and of course, last year, couldn't get the double dip over Ole Miss last year. You beat them 3-2 and then lose 2-0 in the College World Series. But I was talking to a buddy of mine, and people really don't realize how hard it is to get to Omaha. In football, you can get lucky and win a game against somebody, and it'll almost be like you upset in Alabama. Well, then you got to do it 2 more times, or you got to do it 3 more times. Yeah. So you get to the especially with what they had with their pitching staff last year, you've got to have a solid 3 to 4 guys you can go to when you get to the regionals, super regionals, and then Omaha. So you're really battle tested, and these guys play, 50, 60 before they even get there. So, yeah, they're starting off the season against Texas in the College Baseball Classic. I guess just, we had some unfortunate news about Wiggins, and I guess you can elaborate more on that and what happened. But, not a way you really want to start your season off with someone that has so much promise.
Yeah, and Arkansas fans feel like they're snake bit at this point because this is the second straight year that they've lost their Friday night guy. And Jackson was going to be their Friday night guy. Coach Van Horn had said as much. He went into the fall, completely different guy, had command. He struck out 22 over 12 innings and only walked 2. Under 1 ERA, he was just a different guy. He was that guy that a lot of fans and scouts were thinking, this guy could be special if he ever reaches his potential. And he was ready to do that. That was his goal from day one, was to be the Friday night guy. And even as a freshman, that's what he wanted to do. So I hate it for him, but they do have the luxury of saying next. They'll keep Jackson in his prayers and everything. So they don't have the details on everything, how long the recovery is going to be. But I would say, and for all the listeners out there, it would be very surprising to me if Jackson ever pitches again for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think he'll get drafted high enough and get a signing bonus where he needs to get and become a millionaire. next July. So now when you say next, who is next? So we know Hagen Smith's going to be the Friday night guy. Will McIntyre is going to be the number 2, probably starting on Saturday against TCU. But who's going to be number 3? Okay, so you look at Hunter Holland, the lefty from San Jacinto. He's 6'5", runs it up there 92, 94. Really good off speed as well. Got a good curveball slider combination. And they can throw the changeup from that lefty. So I bet he will be your 3rd guy next weekend in Arlington. I'm excited to get down there and see them play. But you open against Texas, who's not even ranked, which is, ranked. And I'm going by D1Baseball.com. I thought, obviously, with those guys and everything, you want to. There's 6 different polls you can talk from. D1Baseball.com, of course, Arkansas is ranked number 8. TCU's not ranked. Oh, TCU's ranked 15th, excuse me. Then Oklahoma State's not. So you got a team that you had to go to Stillwater and beat them last year. That was a lot of fun for a regional. We all know how all that happened. The home runs were massive, and Jalen battles into the night. That was a big deal. So Oklahoma State's going to be good. They got their middle infield back, Rock Riggio and Marcus Brown. That's one of the better, double play combos in the nation. They're up there with Robert Moore and Jalen Battles as far as I'm concerned. They can both pick it and they can both hit it. So they get Nolan McLean back. They're moving him out to the outfield. He was playing third base, and he's going to be their closer again. So they don't have Justin Campbell. He was their ace the last 2 years. So, but they got some good young talent. They're going to be good. TCU, always good. Kirk Sarlos, longtime assistant, took over for Jim Schlossnagle. So that team's going to be really good. Schlossnagle's got a top 5 Texas A&M team now. So that old school TCU coaching staff, they're still doing a lot of good things down there. And then Texas is kind of an unknown. They did lose a pitcher to Tommy John. They lost. It was a little lefty that they got. So Coach Van Horn knows they're going to come out and play hard because it's always a good matchup when Texas plays. But I like Arkansas's chances to go down there and make some noise this weekend. It'll be a good barometer on where they're at. It'll be better than last year. I do know that. I know no offense against Indiana, Louisiana Lafayette, and Stanford, who they ended up seeing again in the College World Series. But it's different playing these Big 12 teams.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about the whole Wiggins thing. And if you're, coming into offseason and you're getting your reps, you're the Friday night guy. What is the difference between your preparation between being that Friday night guy, the Saturday night guy, and the Sunday guy? I mean, is there any difference at all in preparation, or can you really just be next guy up and you just move your reps or your mindset to being the number one guy opposed to the Saturday guy?
There's an added pressure to it because that runs are going to be at a minimum. And that's the biggest thing. So it plays with your psyche and the mental side of the game. That's why, having somebody like a Connor Nolan, a Patrick Wicklander, a tested veteran in that spot, it bodes well. And Hagen Smith is a wily veteran at this point after making 14 starts last year. He was a Saturday night guy or number 2 after, coming in as a freshman and a young freshman at that. So he won't have any issues. The thing with being a Friday night guy is the team is on your back and you're going out there and starting the weekend off right. Arkansas has had a really good run the past 10 years, 8 to 10 years. You go back to Blaine Knight, 2017, 2018, Isaiah Campbell after that. Of course, we had Connor Nolan, Patrick Wicklander. So they've had a really good run lately and had that long stretch of they weren't losing on Friday night. And that's something that they want to get back to.
Well, and another thing they weren't really used to was losing a lot of conference games. They went 18-12 in conference last year. So what's going to be the biggest key to really get that back to where you are the number one, that supreme spot in the SEC? And we know that daunted Tennessee matchup's coming in April. So, what's the biggest key? Because we're talking about starters, but what we got in the bullpen? I mean, we know that they were the past couple of years, the bullpen's kind of getting roughed up and not really as deep as in years past. So are we going to have a deeper bullpen, or is it going to kind of be, again, relying heavy on our starter?
2 years ago, it was all Kevin all the time with Cops. And, you had a couple of guys that you could really rely on. And then last year, the biggest thing about returning to SEC supremacy is consistency. And I think you've seen that the last 2 years with what Tennessee did last year during the regular season and what Arkansas did 2 years before. Tennessee's got one of the best starting rotations in the nation with Chase Dolander, Chase Burns, and then their third spot. And then they got a guy out of the bullpen in Camden Sewell. So having consistency week in, week out. And last year you had a roller coaster with starting pitching, and then towards the end of the year, your bullpen was better. That first half of the SEC schedule when they were 11-4, those starters were nails. They were going 6 innings, and they had a streak of, I think, 6 to 9 games to where, they were getting deep, and you could just turn it over the bullpen and go from there. You had Brady Tiger step up as a freshman and come in as a closer. So the second half of the year was just the opposite. Hitters had to hit if they wanted to stay in games, and sometimes they didn't, and it showed. So you're going to have – last year was really kind of boom or bust, it seemed, with offense. I think you got a little bit more balance this year. You got a really true leadoff in Tavian Josenberger, which Arkansas hasn't had. And that's no offense to Caden Wallace or Webb or whoever they put up there, but Josenberger is a leadoff guy. He's playing center. He's fast. He's quick twitch. So the offense is going to be there, I think, a little bit more. But the big thing with the bullpen, Porter, is these guys are going to be young and they're exciting.
Yeah.
You got some 90-mile-per-hour arms. And when I say 90, I'm saying 90 plus. Those guys are up there 93, 96. Gage Wood from Batesville, Christian Fouch, Ben Bybee. Ben Bybee is a big old boy. 6'4", 230, 240, just hard thrower. He's from the upper Midwest. So you got guys like that. And then you got Sean Fitzpatrick, who's a freshman, a little funky left-hander. It comes out of a weird low three-quarter slot. He's going to give guys fits. So you got some freshmen that are in there. And then you got some guys like Austin Ledbetter, who's going to have an expanded role this year. Brady Taggart, what are they going to do with him? Right now, closer setup guy. If he can go out there and get 2 or 3 innings. But the key with Brady is, of course, we know he's got the really good curveball. But can he locate his fastball? Can he command his fastball for strikes and pitch off that? So, besides Kevin Kopps, you can't be a one-pitch guy in this league. We've seen that. So, and teams picked up on that towards the end of the year. He has the arm. He can run it up there 93, 95, 96. So, and he's got a slider to go with that. So Brady, the back end, I think is really good. Zach Morris has had a rough spring so far. He's gotten roughed up, but he's been pitching against the same guys for the last, umpteen months now, and some of these guys have seen him for the last 2 years. So I wouldn't panic too much about that yet. So you got a couple lefties and then some young righties in the bullpen that are going to step up. And as Coach Van Horn said at the Swatters Club, you'll see Gage Wood a lot and see him early. I think he's one of those that can go out there and be battle tested. And I talked like this about Jackson Wiggins too, and people thought I was a little crazy because it was kind of a relatively unknown. I'll tell you something about Gage Wood. He committed to Kansas State early on, and Arkansas wasn't ready to really pull the trigger yet because they didn't see the velo jump that he wanted to see. But the kid went from 83 to 88, 89 in one summer and became a totally different pitcher. He worked on his body. He got in a situation to where those other teams were taking a look at him. So Arkansas offered, he took it, a year ago. And it really, it was a hard decision on him. He was really bought into Kansas State, and it was something he battled with because he's a loyal kid. He goes out there and competes. He's a bulldog on the mound. So something like that really bothered him. But, last couple of years, there hasn't been a right-handed pitcher in the state of Arkansas who's been better. He's got over 250 strikeouts the last 2 years in high school and threw a no-hitter. Broke the single game record for strikeouts in a game by a Batesville pitcher, which, if you know high school baseball in Arkansas, that's really big. So if you get guys like that can go out there and compete for the Hogs now in their first year, I think this thing will be really exciting.
And of course, you got the college baseball showdown. And then outside of that, you basically got a nice month of just series and, Tuesday games. I think there was a Tuesday game against Grambling, and then there's like a Wednesday, all these games sprinkled in to really get before you go into La Tech, UNLV, and then Auburn. So I guess for the ones that, casual fans, just how important is that month leading up to between now and March 17th when Auburn comes to Fayetteville to get these guys developed, really get the, your pitching rotation and your defense and where you want your lineups in the batting order?
That they really need to get the reps in. And, last year during midweek games, Coach Van Horn played some of the younger guys, but really it was a starting lineup. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. He's got some guys that he really wants to get at bats to see how they can perform on the weekend. And believe it or not, Coach Van Horn has shown if you can compete and perform well in midweek games, he gives you a shot on the weekend. Will McIntyre is a prime example of that. Austin Ledbetter was the same way. Kendall Diggs started swinging it well in practice in midweek games. He got to start against Ole Miss last year. Hits a walk-off home run. So you'll see, few different lineups playing guys at different positions. Brady Slavens may play third base some. After press conference the other day and he's meeting with the media, they want to be in certain situations to where they're not, backed into a corner. So if they got guys on the bench that they need to bring in, they're going to bring them in and they're not going to lose anything defensively. That's the biggest thing you want to see. So, if you're looking at some of the young guys like Jason Jones and Mason Neville, those were top 100 guys that turned down money to come to the University of Arkansas. They want to get on the field early. That's why they came here. So, getting as many reps to the guys like that will be key in how deep this team has come, April and May.
And do you think, with the way the season ended and who it ended to, I know in other sports we could talk about, rivalries and losing to that, Ole Miss or a Tennessee. Do you think that plays into, like Robert Moore and Battles, these guys coming back to really not only try to get Dave Van Horn that, that his elusive College World Series championship, but to really avenge that loss against Ole Miss and the way things ended against the team that, for the most part, they had the best of?
Yeah, and Brady Slavens is one of those guys. He wants to come back, and he's been close 2 years in a row now. He got to be on a number one team for 20 straight weeks, or however many weeks it was, and losing the Super Regionals. And then last year, you go on the road for the regionals. Then the Super Regionals, you go to North Carolina and beat those guys. And then you lose to an SEC foe like that. But, Ole Miss was legit. Yeah, they got in as one of the last teams, but all you need to catch is fire in a bottle and so you can get there. And they did that. Man, it's going to be tough this year with the SEC. You got LSU, who's absolutely loaded. Transfer portal was very kind to those guys. Paul Skeens come in. He's a, first-round talent. Tommy White from NC State hit 27 bombs last year. He's going to be a DH third base. And then you got one of the best players in the nation, and Dylan Cruz out there in center field. So, they're worthy of that number one ranking on paper right now. But as you see, the last 2 years, the number one team didn't make it to Omaha. So what can they do? You got to be consistent. If you take 2 out of 3 every SEC weekend, you're 20-10 at the end of the year, and that's a top 8 seed. Last year, 18-12 wasn't good enough because Arkansas's non-conference schedule wasn't very good. So Coach Van Horn beefed it up a little bit this year. They get to play, at Louisiana Tech. That's really big. And then they got the 3 Big 12 teams to start out with.
Well, and me and Jacob talked last week about how daunting there's a 4-game stretch in the football season this upcoming season. And I'm looking at the baseball season.
Yep.
You go to Vanderbilt. You go to Mississippi State. You go to Georgia. You got Tennessee at home, but you go to Ole Miss and you go to LSU.
Yeah.
You've been in this business a long time. Tell the fan how difficult that schedule, if you're looking at all the teams that you got to go to, and the one you get Tennessee at home, but just explain to the fans how difficult that looks like if you're looking at it on paper.
Yeah, 2 years ago they were saying the same thing because this is the schedule from 2 years ago that they had. So you're at LSU on the second weekend after Auburn. They start out with these Alabama schools, man. Alabama 2 years ago thumped them on Friday night, and then Arkansas just went on the run of a lifetime. So It's going to be a one game at a time type deal. And I know that's coach speak. It's cliche. It's whatever you want to say, but that's the deal. These guys these guys are preparing to play pro ball, and you're going to be competing against pro talent every week in the SEC. So, to do that on the road, every weekend's a battle in the SEC. You know that anything can happen at any time, but it's a pretty tough road to hoe this year, because if you look at some of the polls, okay, let's look at d1baseball.com right quick. Okay, so Ole Miss is number 4, Tennessee is number 2. You get them at home, but Ole Miss is on the road. LSU is on the road. Mississippi State has been up in some polls. Alabama's ranked number 20 this year. Brad Bohannon is doing a great job down there. So, it's Vanderbilt's number 10. They're a top 10, top 15 team, and they're the one you end the season with.
Well, and if you look at the schedule, look who's sitting there on a Tuesday, Wednesday in between the Ole Miss and Tennessee series. So you're playing at Oxford on April 8th. You're playing Little Rock, that daunted in-state school that you had so much trouble with. You got April 8th at Ole Miss. You got a Little Rock 11th and 12th, and then you play Tennessee on the 14th. Again,
yeah, people have said, players have said before, we didn't come out too prepared for that first game. When they got beat 17-7, I think Casey Martin was the one that said it. He's like, we weren't too ready. And you got to be. You can't take any days off. A lot of people don't watch baseball, especially Major League Baseball, because they don't think every team goes out to win every game. And it happens like that sometimes.
Yeah.
If it's the best 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 at the end of the year, you're sitting on top of the division. And it's the same way in college baseball. They want to win every game. Believe me, Coach Van Horn is one of the biggest competitors out there. But, and they got the 10-run rule this year in conference play. If the coaches agree on it, or if it's a travel date, and I know they had it in Kentucky softball. I saw you posted that earlier. It happens. They have a tie. You'll see a tie in college baseball this year because teams got to get on a plane. They have a drop dead time that they have to be done. 2 years ago, weather played havoc with that. You're playing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series one week, and then you're doing it again next week, and then you may go Saturday and doubleheader on Sunday the following week. So, if you're down by 9 or 10 runs and you got a big series coming up, you'll get to see some young guys get some innings and on to the next one.
So do you think that plays along with doing more? I mean, what do you think bodes better, if there's that 10-run rule, or when they try to do these 2 doubleheaders with 7? I mean, how do you think that's beneficial that they do that, or does that throw your whole routine off of trying to fit 2 games, but you're shortening the innings of those games?
Talking about when you go 2 7s on a Sunday or Saturday. I think Vanderbilt last year, we had to play a 7-inning game and lost. We had to do that on the road. So, they want to get them in, and they want to get them in against the competition, because you want to see, how it affects the big picture of things. I'm a realist. I'm an old soul when it comes to baseball. It should be 9 innings. And, for the 10-run rule, take it or leave it. I think it's good in some way, but sometimes I don't think you really need it, because take a look at Ole Miss 2 years ago when Arkansas got up on them, like, what was it, 13-1 or 13-2, and they came back and took the lead, and Arkansas beat them like 18-16. You get those games on Sundays in the SEC. Not as much anymore, because you got older guys that are able to come in through the transfer portal and, pitch on Sunday. So it happens. But, I like the 9-inning games. If you can move it up a day to take advantage of that, do it.
I just think with how strategic you are about your rotations and keeping everybody in that same rotation and your relievers, I really think those 2 7s just throw. And if you do that, say like the Ole Miss per se, you've got to play Ole Miss 2 7s on a Sunday. Then you're turning around on Tuesday playing Little Rock Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you've got to get ready for your biggest series. That could throw your whole season off, because you get in a funk and you drop 2 out of 3 to Ole Miss. You drop 1 or 2 to Little Rock, and then you lose the series to Tennessee. I mean, just from the baseball standpoint, I mean, that could put you in a funk of trying to get out of this hole and getting back to contention of the SEC tournament seedings.
Yeah, it can, and that's why it's so critical to develop these younger guys early. Coach Van Horn talked about who was going to be the 4th starter last year. It turned out to be Will McIntyre. who they can plug and play. Usually it's that guy's is the one that starts the first SEC tournament game. So you got to have that fourth starter and somebody that you can really rely on going into that part of the schedule and say, okay, all right. So if they're looking ahead and something like that happens, all right. So a freshman's going to start Tuesday against Little Rock, then somebody else will go. And if Hagen Smith is not ready to go or something like that, they can plug in that fourth starter, which, could be a Cody Adcock, who's a Ole Miss kickback. He went to Crowder last year, but he's a new pitcher. And I think he's somebody that Razorback fans are really going to like. And it just adds to, those homegrown boys, Austin Ledbetter, Gage Wood, Cody Adcock. It's all in-state talent. Jackson Wiggins, Peyton Paulette, going back, Connor Nolan, Blaine Knight. Arkansas has some really good baseball, and it starts at the high school level and, goes up. I was talking to a coach today, and, he had a freshman that committed to the Arkansas Razorbacks and hadn't played an inning of high school baseball yet, but he's going to start for his high school team and be one of their top pitchers for a big team in one of the larger classifications. So, the class of 2023 is down a little bit in terms of in-state talent that committed to the Razorbacks, but 24 and 25, you got a lot of arms and you got a lot of guys that can, come in and possibly fill, one of those Friday night roles in the future and keep the tradition going.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this. You're really good at the calming of the fans and they lose to a Little Rock in the sky falling, just with this fan base. I mean, with the youth and what you see in this team, it just kind of gives some caution to the fans of say, hey, look, we might drop some of these games, or we might lose 2 or 3 we might lose the Little Rock games because you look at where they're sandwiched in between. So just give us the fans the outlook, what you predict they might do if you can. I know you have other entities that you write for, so if you haven't released it on that, you're good there. But just like your outlook on the team, caution and prediction.
We talked about that the other day, and I write for Hawg Beat with Mason Choate and Robert Stewart and those guys, and we were talking about last year Hutch and I did a season prediction. We went week by week and game by game. We're not going to do that this year because there's so much unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen with I call it preseason, but non-conference, and then your conference play, and then postseason. So we're going to kind of break it up in sections. But you got to remember that baseball is not like football or basketball in that and I hate saying this, it's okay to lose a game and it not affect you too much. Last year, Arkansas was a tale of two teams. And I mean, they started off really hot, 33-8, ridiculous. They were 11-4 in conference, and then just absolutely imploded. They were 7-8 over their last 15 conference games. Didn't host a game. Had to go on the road and do that. So, but at the end of the year, they're 46-21 and end up number 4 in the nation. So, why are we losing our mind over dropping a couple of games? But that's the way Razorback fans are. They're passionate. It's going to happen. They're going to lose some games. And 18-12 with this schedule on the road, I'll take it. And if you do that, I still think you're right there at the bottom of the host. If you start out really good, go 2-1, 3-0 down in Arlington next weekend, that's going to play even better. So I do think this is a 40-win team. I do think they have a shot to get to Omaha. Yeah, they're going to have to wade through the waters of the SEC, and they'll be battle tested by the time they get there. And freshmen coming in aren't freshmen anymore, guys. They've played against some of the best talent in the nation before they even step on campus with travel ball and the way it's gotten these days. So if they can come in and do that and start competing, and they don't, start seizing up too much when the, lights are bright and you got 13,000 people and they're throwing stuff at you at Duty Noble or Alex Box, by the time you get the TD Ameritrade, you're going to be okay.
Well, that's what there's a Division II school in South Carolina. I almost went there out of high school. It was North Greenville. They ended up winning the national championship last year. Small Christian school. Well, they ended up getting to play in a Major League Baseball stadium, and the coach was quoted as saying, "We're here to hit pop flies and home runs." He said, "We'll worry about our season, but these guys will never ever get the chance to play in a Major League stadium again, probably." who wouldn't want to come hit, and said that candid on an interview. And I really like that the fact that you're going in there loose. Like you said, it's okay to drop a game. It's like, I don't care if we lose every game. I want our guys to come down here and have fun. And like, I just thought it was funny that he said, we're going to hit a lot of pop flies and a lot of home runs. So we might get 2 hits the whole series.
Yeah. They'll go in, they'll compete down there, and it's just going to be like every Dave Van Horn ball club. They're going to play hard, and they're going to have a chance to win every game. If you look at the year they went 50-13, sans the Alabama game where they got blown out of the water, they had a shot just about every game they were in. So it's going to be a fun, exciting team to watch.
I said, I think Dave Van Horn, he had that Michael Jordan thing. He took that personally.
Yeah, he did.
Hey, man, Cabo, always appreciate you coming on. It starts all down here. You're going to be down there. Guys, follow him. Cabo, baseball guru, for all the latest. Does the best job in the state of keeping up with the high school, the travel, and the college. Very proud of what you done. And you being the host here and then going on and doing what you think. Doing things, moving up with D1 baseball. So, like I said, between you and Kyle, man, I couldn't be more proud of our little HTP tree we got going on here.
That's right. It's been a lot of fun, and you never get where you came from. So, appreciate it, buddy, and looking forward to a big season.
That's right. Well, that will do it for this segment. We're going to take a little commercial break. After the break, we'll bring Jacob on to recap what me and Cabo talked about and go over the basketball's rough game against Mississippi State.
Shelby Taylor Trucking serves all your timberland needs in South Central Arkansas. With over 50 years in the industry, Shelby Taylor Trucking has established themselves as trustworthy leaders in the industry. From planting to harvesting to hauling your timber, Shelby Taylor Trucking is ready to serve you. Follow them on all social media platforms at Shelby Taylor Trucking. Learn more by visiting their website at staylortrucking.com. That's staylortrucking.com.
McCoy Tiger Drug Store of Sheridan, Arkansas has been the top pharmacy in all of South Central Arkansas since 1895. They were also the 2020 Good Neighbor Pharmacy of the Year. They not only fix you up with your prescription with timely and friendly service, but also an elite gift shop. All your OTC needs, baby and wedding registries, tuxedo rentals, and much more. They're located at 821 North Rock Street in Sheridan. Give them a call today at 870-932-5121.
And we want to welcome you back to the Hawg Talk podcast. We bring in Jacob Davis. Jacob, me and Cabo were talking, and you know how we were talking last week about how the daunting 4-game stretch with the football team. We were just going over the baseball series. All right, so you remember the 4-game stretch I talked to you about with football?
Yeah.
Right. April 6th, 7th, and 8th, Arkansas baseball goes to Ole Miss.
Yep.
Tuesday and Wednesday, they play Little Rock. That following Friday, Tennessee comes to town. So which one would you think is the toughest? You're talking about a 10-day stretch from the 10th to the 16th where you're playing Ole Miss, Little Rock, Tennessee. I mean, that's a pretty daunting stretch when it comes to the baseball team.
That's definitely a daunting 8-game stretch because you're playing 2 rivals right back to back, and then you got an in-state school in between. Everybody hates Ole Miss. Like, I mean, they just had that swag about them that you just love to hate them. And then Tennessee comes in with the evil gremlin from Arkansas, Tony Costello, or not Tony. Oh my gosh, I messed up his name. Tony Vitello, yeah, messed up his name. I was thinking of Perry Costello too. I was just thinking about him a little bit ago after a tweet. If you don't remember Perry Costello, that's one of the infamous officials, umpires out there. But yeah, that is going to be a rough stretch of games. I really think DVH is going to have them focused for both of those games. They're huge series. One's on the road, one's at home. And then don't forget about it. In May, the first week of May, they had Mississippi State. That's a 3-game home series. And my wife's cousin plays for Mississippi State. I have no rooting interest for him. I hope he does well, despite Arkansas beating them or sweeping them. I hope he does well. But But yeah, I just don't. I feel like Arkansas is set. I think they are a 40-win team. I do believe that they have the pitching. They lost, they lost Jackson Wiggins this past week due to Tommy John surgery. But if you could afford to lose anybody in any position group, it is pitching, because DVH has even said this year they have one of the deepest pitching staffs that they've ever had on the hill. So that's saying something.
Oh yeah, and their SEC, man, it's loaded. They got to go to LSU,
Yeah,
go to Ole Miss. They get Tennessee at home, but then they've got to go to Mississippi State.
Yeah,
and they got to go to Vanderbilt. That's one I didn't even mention to Cabo, but it seems he said it was a schedule from 2 years ago, man. But it seems like they just got. You want to talk about a team that's trying to reload and get their dominance back at the number one team in the SEC. This is going to be a tough schedule. I mean, when we say the football schedule, this is going to be tough. This is going to be this is really going to be tough for Arkansas to. They finished 18-12 last year in the conference. It's going to be, if they, like you said, if they finish 18-12 this year, they've done something incredible with that schedule.
And that's the thing about college baseball. You can lose games and still make it to the college World Series and the NCAA tournament. You can go 500 in the SEC play and sneak in as an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament in college baseball. That's just how respected the SEC is, and it's how respected Arkansas is under DVH.
We'll move on to the basketball, and
Lord,
I'm going to be quite honest. There's a lot of people that's making a lot out of this game that they shouldn't, because I mean, dude, you can go back to the 2000s with Stansbury, and Arkansas has always had problems with Mississippi State. It's that one school. It's like an Ole Miss in football or Texas A&M in football, that team that you're always 50-50 against, and if you win, you lose. But, you're trying to get Nick Smith Jr. back in the lineup, and long road ahead. We still got plenty of time between now and the SEC tournament. Absolutely. You're sitting at 500 in the SEC. He gets 17 minutes. He put up 7 shots. He was 1 for 3, 2 for 7 overall. And people are like, well, now that he's back, now what? I mean, it was his very first game. I mean, what do you expect out of this team? I mean, I don't know if they expected to come in and run 40 minutes and score 30 points or what. But, I mean, this was one of them games that they lost. It's not a bad loss because they have always played against this team tough no matter what.
Yeah. And in Mississippi State, man, they are solid. They are very physical. This isn't the first time this season that Mississippi State has gone against a team that they shouldn't be beating or have any business beating, but because of their defensive philosophy, they've stayed in these games. And, I mean, they lost by 3 to Alabama. They beat a ranked Marquette team. They beat a ranked TCU team. Like, this team is stout, man. They're in the top 50 in the net rankings, which is really good. I mean, they are a bubble team. And yeah, they're 4-7 in conference, but they started the SEC schedule 0-4. Yeah. I mean, and they drilled off 5 wins in a row. Like they've come from the pits of the SEC cellar to being a respectable SEC team. And it took Chris Jan some time to gel his roster. It's taken time to get used to the speed of the game in the SEC compared to the Western Athletic Conference. But he's done a really good job. And Jans is a heck of a coach. Arkansas played him last year in the round of 32 when he was at New Mexico State and almost beat Arkansas within 1 possession. And yesterday, it was just the physical nature of them. Arkansas missed some easy shots at the rim. If they would have fallen, Arkansas could have won that game. If they would have shot a little bit better at the free throw line, they probably would have won that game at home. It's not a end of the world situation. It's not a bad loss. And if anything, I'm not going to discredit Mississippi State for what they did at Arkansas last night. I'm not saying it's a bad loss for Arkansas because it's not. It's really not. In the grand scheme of things, Arkansas could lose this game, and they did, and it not hurt their NCAA tournament seeding moving forward. It's not going to hurt them. Yeah, they need to finish out this next 6-game stretch before SEC tournament play at least 3-3, but this Mississippi State loss did not kill them because I mean they could go on the road, beat Alabama, beat Tennessee, and win against Kentucky at home, and everything's completely fine, and you win 20 games. It's going to be okay.
The point that Arkansas can't get into is where you have to start determining and counting on getting a certain amount of wins in the SEC tournament for your seeding. That's a very sticky situation you get yourself into. You want to go into the SEC tournament knowing that, okay, we might be a 6 or 7, or we might be a 10 or 11. But if you go in there hoping that you have to win 2-3 games in the SEC tournament to get that 7 seed or get a 10 seed, you don't want to be in that, because then you could find yourself in the play-in game.
Right.
Another thing is, these slow starts. They were 9 for 26 in the first half shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and 2 for 11, from the 3-point line. You just cannot get in these slow starts. And this is not just to do with anything with Nick Smith Jr. being inserted back in. And like on the defensive side, it ain't like you had one guy that hit 27 points or 30. They had 4 guys. Tolu Smith had 11. Cameron Matthews had 10. Shaquille Moore had 12. And then Deshaun Davis had 17.
Yeah.
It's not like they just drill. I mean, they only hit 6 threes.
Yeah.
This was a grinded out game, and they just didn't have the grinders in there to pull out this game.
And in my opinion, this loss was not on Nick Smith. Nick Smith's trying to get back into a game flow. The guy hasn't played since December 17th. That's a long time not to be on the court in a regular season matchup. And I mean, he was not in game flow, and loss is not on him. If Arkansas didn't even play him yesterday, I don't think they would have won anyway. They wouldn't have. I mean, Anthony Black was doing everything that he could do. Yeah, there was a couple of turnovers there in the first and second half where Anthony Black would pass the ball to the side of the court, and Nick Smith would be floating to the corner. And that's just part of the thing of guys needing to be adjusted to team chemistry, team flow, and it's going to work out. I mean, it was like that the first game that Nick Smith played in during non-conference play, where they had to get used to each other, and it'll gel. And I think Arkansas will be better from it. But I don't think even if Nick Smith had not played on Saturday, I don't think it would have made any difference.
Yeah, and you got 3 games coming up that are perfect to really get him back in that lineup, because you got A&M, Florida, Georgia, then before you got at Alabama, at Tennessee, Kentucky. So it's imperative you have to. This is just you. I think you have to win 2 of these 3 next games.
Absolutely.
You got Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, because like I said, you lose 2 or 3 of these games. Now you're counting on having to win 2 or 3 of the games against Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and then having a good performance in the SEC tournament.
Yeah.
I would love for them to go 3 for 3 in this, but if they go 2 out of 3, but that because Texas A&M is always a hard place to play. It's 8:00, on a Wednesday, so you got the late game. But if you go 3-3 in the next 6 games, that's going to set you up where you're still right there at 500 in the SEC, going into the SEC tournament, to where you're not. Now you can't win 3 and then lose 3. You're 0 for 3 in the last 3 games, and it going on your seeding coming into the tournament. But like I said, it's just gonna. But with Kentucky down, I'll tell you what. At Tennessee, them losing, that's these games are winnable. Even the Alabama games winnable. If you get Nick Smith Jr., everybody jailed back into it. But sit there and say that it was my fault for even bringing him back in, and all these people that really wanted him to come back. When's he coming back? When's he coming back? He comes back, and then he's like, "Well, he shouldn't have come back. He should." I mean, that's like. Some of these people can't be happy. They're always pissing and moaning about something. And I'm just like, are we really doing this? He comes back, gets you 17 minutes. Yeah, he was rusty. That's what you expect. But you've got 3 games coming up that he can get fine-tuned and ready to go for Alabama, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
Yeah. And is the Georgia and Florida, are one of those is like on the road, isn't it? Is it the Florida game that's on the road?
A&M game's the only one of those on the road. You got Texas A&M.
Oh, so they get
Florida and Georgia back to back at home.
Oh wow, that's great. So
Yes.
I'm thinking if you can protect home court, even if you go to Texas A&M and lose that game, which, heaven forbid they not, because, Razorback Nation will melt down again. Heaven forbid that from happening, because, that's just unacceptable. Look, guys, Mississippi State's had Arkansas's number since 2016. Like, Arkansas is 3-8 against the Bulldogs. That's under Ben Howland, and that's under Jans, and then they had issues beating them.
Stansberry? Was that
it was Rick Stansberry, who's now at Western Kentucky. They could not win a win on the road at Mississippi State. I don't think it happened more than twice under Stansberry. Man, they were so tough. Mississippi State's always tough, and people say, "Oh, it's poverty program." I hate the term poverty program because teams can sneak up and beat you on any single night, and I just hate the freaking term poverty program because you're making an excuse. So what does that make your school if a team comes in and beats you? Does that mean you're a poverty program too? No. Any team can beat anybody on any single night. And Mississippi State's far from being a poverty program.
Well, and you got A&M coming up. They're 7-2, so this will be one of them wins that, when you're looking at beating teams above you, they won 170. Ricky Council and Davis had 19 and Black had 11. So say if you can get Nick Smith Jr. to give you 7 points, he don't have to come in and give you 19 points. He comes in, gets you, I would say 7 to 10 points, couple assists, gets you 20 to 25 minutes. You slowly start get him in more minutes, depending on how healthy he stays. That's going to bode well. So, go ahead.
He looked good defensively. Like, he's one of the better on-ball defenders. He's on that level of Devo. And even if he would have got some of those shots to fall, like those shots that he took last night were not terrible shots. I saw 2 of them that if they would have fallen, he probably would have taken more shots throughout that second half because his stroke looked good. Like, nobody could hit the broadside of a barn. It's like there was a lid on the rim, as cliche as it sounds. Like, I think Smith, I don't think he took any bad shots. I don't think he took any ill-advised decisions. But
there was only one. There was one. I will critique one of his shots.
Okay.
I can't remember what point in the game it was, but it was a fast break in transition, and he just shot a 3.
Okay.
It was and I think they were closing in on the lead, or there was a point in the game where they were really.
So I think that might have been a Devo Davis shot. I remember Devo heat checked one with about 16 seconds left on the shot clock in the second half. And I was thinking that was a ill-advised shot. Yeah. Now, you may be thinking of another play that I'm not thinking of, but I do remember Devo taking a shot with about 16 seconds on the shot clock with about 3 minutes to go. And I was thinking, that shouldn't have done that, Devo.
Yeah, I think we're talking about 2 different ones. Okay. But I know there for a fact, Nick, he come down. But like I said, that's the only thing that we can critique of that. But what I wanted to bring up, and that's to the people, again, casual fans, people who follow basketball, you got to realize this guy's got a knee injury. And whatever you're doing, whether you're shooting and cutting and defense, if you're not 100% confident in a game time, game speed, we're talking about practice speed and game speed. If you're trying to guard somebody, game speed, you're trying to shoot, game speed. If you're for a split second thinking about your knee and you're worried about your knee, it's going to affect your shot. It's going to affect your defense. Yeah. It's going to affect your cutting. That could be the difference when you getting open and not getting open. That's could be the difference from being short and long. So that's why I want to say this game, it was a wash because he's got to get confident in his knee in a game time situation. So this Texas A&M game coming up is going to be really important when it comes to, all right, let's see if there's progress. That's what you always want to see when you're coming off an injury. All right, how much better now does he look coming off cuts? You look at the little things. When he's getting his shot up, does he get a good bend in that shot to where he's comfortable in? Because you can tell when a shot's rushed or long. You can just tell in the mechanics of a shooter. If he comes in more confident than he did against Mississippi State, because, again, when you're playing against a physical team, you're going to be more aware
of re-injuring that knee. It's just how your mental, you've got to get your mental in tune with your physical. I think this game coming up against Texas A&M is going to be that kickstart to where, like I said, staying healthy, they give him 20-25. He might get you 10 to 12 points. He might spark a run that can really cap off the win.
Yeah. Do you start him on Wednesday night?
No, I don't think you start him because, like I said, you only played him 17 minutes.
Yeah.
Get him in the groove. Let's get him in the groove of playing, and then you elevate him to starter. Not saying he's not good enough,
Right.
But that's what I would do. Get the guy comfortable. Now you're skipping a step. You're rushing him back to starting before he's even got to the point to where he's comfortable in the role you're giving him as it is. Bring him in, boost his confidence up where he knows he can go out and hit the twos and threes. Let him drive the basket and get bumped and land on the floor. Let him really get tested and get physical, and where he gets that confidence, because that's what's really going to happen. Somebody's going to hit him, he's going to fall, or he's going to take a cut, and he's going to be okay, and it's all going to click in.
Yeah. What do you think about Mikael Mitchell? Hadn't he been a bright spot over the past month?
You know what? You want a dog to come in there, and how he's coming in, and
he's starting now.
You got 9. He got 9 points the last time they played. I mean, you've had 13. Mikael had 13 and 9 the last time they played.
Yeah.
Makai had he had 5 rebounds and 6 points. But yeah, no, I'm very surprised on how both of the twins have been playing, because those are those glue guys that you want to come in and give you like what Kamani Johnson was doing. What Jalen Graham does. He played 12 minutes the last time, had 5 points. If you can get these guys to come in, Makai come in, gave you 15 minutes, but he had 6 points. He was a positive 8 on the plus minus when he was on the floor. That's what's going to be the key to, these role players that come in, because now we're at the point where, you got Anthony Black sitting at 37, 39 minutes, Ricky Council 39. You're starting to get guys come in and produce and taking some of these minutes away, but yet they're producing the same. That's going to be key when it comes to tournament time. That's going to be huge.
Yeah. Mikael Mitchell, though, he's had since that A&M game, 9 points, 5 points, 15 points, and 6 points. But you look at his block numbers. He has, let's see here, 7, 8, 13, 16 blocks in the last 4 games. That includes that 7 blocks that he had against A&M. He had 3 against Baylor. He's had a block in every single game since the Alabama game. He's had at least 1 block, and 2 blocks in 3 consecutive games, and then 7 and 5 blocks. He's just been a rim protector, a guy that's not afraid to go up after you and be physical with you. And that's what you need and that's what Arkansas needed last year, especially after what they had to go up against with, was it Smith and was it Mark Smith? Was that the guy's name from Duke, and Paulo Banchero?
Banchero. I can't remember the other guy.
Yeah, Banchero. Yeah, there was Mark. I think it was whoever it was. He's like 7'1", 7'2", and Musselman took offense to that. Yeah. And like Michael Jordan said, I took offense to that and went out there and got him some big men. Nolan said, went out there and got me some men. Need to get me some men. And Mikael and Makai have been absolute men, especially Mikael. I've been really impressed by his progression throughout the season. It's kind of like, you remember how Adrio Bailey was his first year under Musselman. He was a liability throughout the first half of the season, but then he started hitting a groove and started becoming somebody that you could depend on in the post, even though he was only 6'6". And that was maybe on a good day. But
another thing that's positive too is, I know as a whole we could say that as a team they're shooting 69%, but Anthony Black went 5 for 6 and Ricky Council went 11 for 13. Yeah. Vontae Davis went 2 for 2. So if you got your core guys, that the ones that you can lean on that are going to get out at the end of the game, that's going to be another big deal. Of course, we can point out the numbers, 18 for 26 as a team. But when you got your core guys giving you free throws, it's just one of them
deals that can really help you close out these games. But these next 3 games are very important when it comes to closing out the game, winning these games, because you got A&M on the road and you got 2 at home before the final 3 stretch. Again, that way you're not putting as much emphasis on those final 3 games. They're already big enough as it is. You don't need any more added pressure when it comes to, you've got Tennessee, Alabama, and Kentucky. You put those names on the board, and that should be all you need to do to get you motivated enough to come in. And so if you start losing these games, you're putting more pressure on yourself to win these games that are going to be tough as it is. And then you start playing a game that's not your game.
Right. Yep. And Arkansas, their free throws attempted is 33rd in the country at 22 attempts per game. And they've been up here recently. I believe Arkansas shot more than that over the past 3 or 4 games. I'd have to pull that up. But, yeah, they are shooting the free throws a lot better. I mean, obviously, you can't always depend on your big men to shoot free throws, because I don't know why it's so hard for big men to go out there and just nail them consistently. I was watching NBA games today, and Jalen Tatum for Boston, he's a big guy, and he's 6'8", 6'9", going up there to the line and just hitting them consistently. And it's just hard that's the next level thing for big men is to be more consistent on free throws. But like you said, if your guards are hitting it and hitting at a high rate, like 85 to 90%, most times, you're going to be unbeatable, especially the way the fouls are being called in college basketball right now. But Arkansas has been in the top 5 or top 10 in free throws attempted and free throws made for the first 3 years under Musselman. And this year they've dipped into the 40s. But that's because they don't have that alpha scorer, a guy that has the mentality to go into the lane. You have that Anthony Black. But for some reason, though, Anthony Black doesn't get as many fouls drawn.
Because he's bigger.
Because he's bigger. Yeah.
He's bigger. If that was a no-pay type person, going in there, you're going to get it's just a benefit of,
especially when you're 6'2", 6'3".
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, and Devo's starting to get to where he will go and drive the lane more. And I like that about his game. And Ricky Council will do the same, but those guys are bigger guards, and that's the price you pay right now under Musselman is you get bigger physical guards that want to get downhill, but you don't get as many fouls called against your opponent too. But things will change throughout the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, because that's just the nature of the game. His games are called differently, officiating wise, once you get to the NCAA tournament. Hopefully, we'll see that change, and Arkansas can be more of a mega scoring threat from the line than what they've been throughout this season.
Yeah, and A&M hasn't lost since the game against Arkansas. So that's going to be another one that they want to avenge that loss in Fayetteville. They want to get that home game back. So they want to move to 8-2 and really get their double, because if they go on a little skid, that could be that difference between them getting a double bye and not. So there's a lot on the line for Texas A&M too. And we're not really used to seeing that with the Texas A&M team being that high up in the conference. But, this is going to be a very important win or game against Texas A&M. But I see Arkansas winning just because I think things are going to start clicking. This game against Mississippi State, to me, it's you're bringing somebody back in, getting him healthy, and you're worried about more of doing him right opposed to rushing him in and trying to give him more minutes than he needs.
Yeah. Trying to count out as Arkansas is 2-6 since Texas A&M joined the SEC in road games. Arkansas's won 2 road games. The last one was back in 2019. They won 73-71 there. And then the last one before that, let's see, Arkansas won. Let me find it here. I just had it. 62-60 in 2017. And that both of those wins were under Mike Anderson. So Arkansas, they're 3-3 under Eric Musselman against A&M. 38-39 all time on the road against Texas A&M. Arkansas holds a 106-59 advantage all time against the Aggies. So that Arkansas historically been a better team, better program than what A&M has been, but A&M has had their number since joining the SEC, especially when it comes to going to A&M and inking out a win. 2-6. That's crazy.
We'll see how it plays out. I mean, like we're at the downhill stretch. It's crazy how fast the basketball seasons came and went. But we're at the final couple of weeks of and we're March Madness is just a few weeks away. So, Jacob, before we wrap things up, is there anything else you want to add or discuss before we end this?
As far as I know, man, I think I'm good. I think I've said a lot in the last 30 minutes. So, I'm good to go. I think the Hogs have a good chance, especially Arkansas plays their best when they're coming off a loss, especially a loss of an embarrassing loss, is what Musselman would call it. And I think these guys are going to link together and go out there and play their best ball. I say since Kentucky, which was 1 week ago, but they have a bad taste in their mouth. I think Arkansas goes out there and fights and claws and comes out of College Station with a victory on Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Wednesday night at 8:00. It will be shown on ESPN2. So stay tuned for that. But tomorrow night, we will have Danielle Musselman come on the show for our weekly women's sports report. We are expanding it to an hour, our first hour show presented by Hotworks out of Springdale. So, very excited to extend that to an hour. Really excited to talk to Danielle Musselman about all things she's got going on in Northwest Arkansas. So tune in tomorrow, 6:00 p.m. for that. But for Jacob Davis, I am Porter Hayes. Enjoy the last 2 minutes of the Super Bowl. It's 35-35 right now. Chiefs got the ball. So, hey, I know we ain't got many people tuning in. We've got this thing called the Super Bowl going on right now. So, but catch us
Who cares about it?
on our YouTube channel, on all platforms, as well as Buzz2 in Central Arkansas. And we are presented by Bet On and a part of Believe and Buzz Radio Network.